Welcome to Grow Getters with host Davis Michaelson, who's looking for and discovering agriculture's most inventive side hustles.
Grow Getters is brought to you by BASF and Veltima Fungicide. With the performance of Veltima Fungicide from BASF, you can take your best results even further. Well, hey everybody, I am Davis Michaelson here for Grow Getters. We're talking to farmers and farm people who've got a little something extra going on the side. Today, our conversation finds us way down south in cotton country, where a farming family is finding some ways to give back to their local community and some fresh ways to market their crop directly. We've got a husband and wife couple here, farming folks from South Carolina, and their response to a time of trouble, a time when other families really may have just crumbled and fallen apart, maybe didn't know where to look for answers. They took that and turned it into an opportunity, and I don't want that to slip by us today. So without further ado, according to their website, quote, they're on a mission to cultivate, that's a word we're going to use here quite a bit in today's show, cultivate the natural comfort and quality of cotton products grown and crafted in the USA. Cultivate relationships that invite people into the wonder and truth of agriculture, and cultivate a cause that tells a story and shares hope. I love every second of that. With that, let me bring in Tracy and Ty Woodard from Woodard Farms in South Carolina. Gang, welcome to Grow Getters. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time and for being willing to share your story with us and where you've come from and where you've wound up. Start me at the beginning. Help us to get to know you and your operation just a little bit as far as farming goes on. Acres, what are you doing? What crops do you grow? What's the story over there on the farm?
Yeah, so I'll share a little bit about that. So we're a third generation farm here in Darlington, South Carolina. My granddad started the farm in 1962, kind of as we know it today. He came from a farmer family, but through a combination of circumstances, his dad's polio and Great Depression, the family kind of got out of farming. And so he was actually a traveling meat salesman. And so kind of as the story goes, he was traveling through the area and saw a particularly impressive tobacco crop and, said, in his mind, if that farm ever comes up for sale, I'm going to buy it. And lo and behold, it did. And that was 1962. And so we started then, and tobacco obviously was a big part of what we did at the time, and all the way really up until 2010, and just grew and expanded over the years. My dad was the first full-time family member on the farm. That was in 1980. My brother and I are here now, along with my dad still. We all went to Clemson. My brother graduated in 2003, and I graduated in 2007. But kind of the farm as we know it today is a little over 4,000 acres of row crops. We also manage some timber. We have a beef cow herd as well, but we grow cotton, corn, soybeans, peanuts, and then, a little rye and wheat along the way. But really fortunate to be able to do what we do and do it with family. And that's kind of where we are today.
Yeah, that sounds great. And it occurs to me, there's one of those things out there. Don't get between a farmer and a piece of property that he wants. If there's a piece of property that a guy's got his eye on, doggone it, he's going to do his darndest to get it. Sounds like that's exactly what happened right here. Yeah, for sure.
So we were really fortunate. My granddad was really, I would consider him innovative. On his own, and he would take his vacation. From a salesman job to work the tobacco in, and always willing to try new things. And I think that's something that's always been instilled in us.
That doesn't sound like much of a vacation.
Yeah.
Well, the two of you met in college together. And Tracy, maybe you can shed some light on this. I mean, was his opening line, "Hey girl, let's get together and make a farm"? Huh? Is that how it went?
Actually, it was the exact opposite.
Okay, let's talk about that.
So I'm from a more city in our state, and right outside of our capital. And he grew up on the farm and worked in the summers, and loved the farm, but never had a desire to come back and do it full time. And so when we met my freshman year in college and his sophomore year, he was a biology major. He wanted to do sports medicine. His plan was to go to medical school afterwards. I had big city dreams. I was a graphic communications major and wanted to live in a big city and wear high heels to work. And
me too, by the way.
It seems like, we were going in the same direction, but that summer after we started dating, he came back to the farm to work like he always did. And the Lord just really changed his heart. And he came back and he said, listen, I, really feel like I'm supposed to be back on my family's farm.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second, this isn't what we've talked about. Obviously Darlington is not a big city. At the time, we didn't even have a Walmart. And so it was something I had to come around to. His parents even tried to talk him out of it because they were like, are you sure you want to come back and do this?
Yeah.
His older brother always knew he was coming back. And so things just really aligned and really paved the way for him to be able to come back. And we got married in 2008 and just realized, like, I'm going to build my life with this man. And I'm not coming home every day to a career or to a city, or it doesn't matter where we are. And so now I couldn't imagine us doing anything else.
Yeah.
Ty loves what he does, and I love what we do too. So it all worked out.
Dude, Ty, you were both set up, college and all that sort of stuff. What happened that summer? Can you put your finger on it?
I think Tracy hit on it. I mean, it was just the Lord, kind of beginning to change my heart. I always, I had appreciation for what my dad and my granddad had done, and because I was working in it, but up until that point, it was kind of just a job. I understood the value of a dollar and what it took, the sweat and the blood and the tears that it took to get it and provide, for our family. But I think it was just the Lord just slowly saying, hey, this is what I've created you for. This is, you've got a skill set to bring to the farm to make it better than it was. And along with my brother's skill set, I think we complement each other extremely well. And, since I've been back, we've doubled in size and, taken on a lot of new challenges. But it, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Sure. Well, let's talk about some of those self-inflicted challenges that we've got here. CoveredInCotton.com. I've been to your website. You've got a fantastic collection going there. This is some really great stuff. And are you using cotton from your own farm to create these, correct?
That's right. Everything is our cotton. We can trace it back to the field we grow it in.
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot to talk about there. We'll get to it, but I want to talk about where Covered in Cotton started. Say as much or as little about this as you would like. Share with us what you feel like doing here. But there was a really frightening series of events in your family, and you came out the other side with an idea. Ty, Tracy, I don't know who wants to discuss that, but tell us your story, because this goes back to the faith. This goes back to the farm. This is the crux of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start from where Covered in Cotton started, and I'll kind of work backward from there. So, being a commercial row crop operation just really had us disconnected from the end product user of all that we grow on our farm. And so in December of 2017, the Lord woke me up from a dream, and the dream was covered in cotton, that we were supposed to take the cotton that we grow on our farm and make it into blankets. And so I wrote it all down, what the logo was supposed to look like, what it was supposed to be called, and wrote it all down. And I woke Ty up and I said, this sounds crazy, but this is what we're supposed to do. And so that kind of started the trajectory of where Covered in Cotton was. But in that dream, there was a connection to a nightmare that we had lived exactly 2 years before that. So December of 2015, earlier that year, we got the shock of our lives and found out that we were having twins.
Oh,
And at the time, we already had a 2-year-old son. He turned 3 right before our boy and girl twins, Tobin and Tyson, were
oh,
born.
that's a cute age, isn't it?
Yes. So it was a crazy time in her family.
Yeah.
And so the twins were a few months old. I had been on maternity leave, and actually the week I went back to work, the church that I work for, we had a conference every year in December. And Ty and I went to that conference out of town, and my parents kept all 3 kiddos. Grandparents are the best thing ever. And so while we were away, Tobin, our little boy, who wasn't quite 3 months old yet, started running a fever. And really at the start, it didn't really seem like anything. We'd called our pediatrician and been back on, back and forth with our parents. But something didn't feel right. So we ended up coming back early from our trip. And by the time we made that 2-hour drive, Tobin had gone from just having a fever to he was lethargic. He was barely moving.
Oh no.
He was even like a different color. I had never seen anybody look like he looked. And so we rushed him to the emergency room.
That sounds terrifying for young parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I tell people that, on the way there, I'm like Googling, and it's the first time in the history of the internet that mom Googled the symptoms of her kid, and it actually was the worst case scenario. So he was diagnosed with bacterial meningitis, and I don't even know if I knew what that was before that day. But really just turned our lives upside down in a matter of minutes, it seemed like. And so that was the 1st of December. We're still, Christmas and trying to figure out what that looks like with a family of 5. But I got we got the best gift we'd ever been given. It was a gift of perspective. Even leading up to that point, that year we call a 1,000-year flood in our area where we didn't harvest a single acre of cotton. Everything was underwater. Like, it was just a crazy time, not in just our family, but on our farm. And anyways, we got a really great gift of realizing what matters and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And so Tobin spent 35 days in the Children's Hospital in Columbia, South Carolina. And they had cautioned us that if he were to survive, he had a very rare, very severe form of bacterial meningitis, that if he were to live, that he would, at the very least, lose all or part of his hearing and vision. And at the very worst, he'd never developmentally progress past 3 months old.
Good.
And so, obviously, like you said, an incredibly scary time for us. But a time where we got to the end of ourselves. Everything was out of our control. And we got to see the Lord just work in ways that I could talk for a very long time about.
Sure.
But he had emergency brain surgery on his very first Christmas Eve. And that was kind of out of the blue. We weren't expecting that to happen. But he came on the other side of that and did great.
Yeah. How's he doing now?
He is 8 years old, almost 9, and he is healed in every way. He makes straight A's in school. He plays flag football and baseball and soccer, and he's the funniest kid you've ever met. And so we experienced such a miracle. The Lord healed him in every way.
And as almost a keepsake of that miracle and that interaction, suddenly there was a baby blanket. and that gave you an idea, didn't it?
Yes. So that's what the Lord brought back to mind that 2 years later. So we had countless people love on us and take care of us. And some of those were people that we met in the hospital, nurses and doctors and staff there. And we had one nurse, her name was Allie. She was our very first nurse when we were admitted into the hospital. And we had her for one shift, but she made a huge impact on us. And she came back a couple of weeks later and found us after we had moved floors and moved rooms. And she brought us a blanket. And it was practical because we lived in the hospital for, over a month. And so it was a source of practical comfort. But then even afterwards, it was this reminder of the Lord just covering and protecting our family. And so fast forward 2 years later, the Lord gives us this dream to create a blanket company. And from the start, we knew that it was an opportunity to tell that story, to tell the story of this seemingly small act of kindness, to tell the story of the Lord's goodness in our lives and how He'd healed our son, and just to share what we do on our farm in a really special way. And so for every 10 throws we sell, we donate one to a children's hospital in South Carolina. And for every 10 baby blankets we sell, we donate one to a family ministry here in our state. So to date, we've donated over 1,100 blankets to 5 children's hospitals across the state. We go to those same 5 every year. And every December, we go back to the hospital that Tobin was at. And we see Allie. She makes it a point to meet us every time we go.
Oh, wow.
And it's a humongous blessing to us. To be reminded of what now seems like a dream because we have a healthy son. But we get note cards and messages and just so many incredible and special ways that people have told us that these blankets have just brought some comfort to them.
Yeah. What a great outreach, and what a great form of a ministry for you folks too. Ty, what are you, some kind of expert weaver or something? How do you? I mean, we got napkins, we got T-shirts, we've got all sorts of products here on coveredInCotton.com. They look fantastic. You do a heck of a nice job, sir.
I appreciate it. I probably deserve all the credit.
I would assume so. Yeah. No, but what about production? I mean, it's not easy to make this stuff. This is quality stuff.
Right. Absolutely. So quality, obviously, at the end of the day, we're putting our name behind it. And so that's something we're not, that's not an open-handed thing for us.
Right.
But one of the things also that, we're passionate about is just those relationships that we talk about in our mission statement. And so we partner with different textile companies throughout North and South Carolina to sew, to make our yarn, to weave the blankets, and then, cutting and sewing as well. So every step in the process is a family business, somebody that we can call up and talk to them personally.
Yeah.
And they're also, trying to make an impact on their community as well. And that part of it has really been a blessing for us. I mean, just great people who, and even outside of the partners that we use, when Tracy was first kind of going backwards from the blanket to how it was going to be made, we had people that, really pointed us in the right directions and said, well, have you thought about this, or have you talked to this person, or things that we're really, really grateful for, because we've been growing cotton now for a couple of decades, but we really had no idea when it came to the textile industry. And so just we wouldn't be here today without the help of a lot of really great people along the way. But so our cotton really makes about a 500-mile round trip, from our farm to the gin in Hartsville, to the yarn spinner in Thomasville, North Carolina, to the plier in Hickory, North Carolina, and back Blacksburg, South Carolina, where they weave it together. And then, our cut and sew was here in Lamar, South Carolina, which is in Darlington. They, within the last year or so, have shut down. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to bring that step in-house.
Oh, nice.
Buying some of their equipment. And we really felt like that was the biggest thing that we could bring in-house. And so we've been really, really fortunate. And they've been really good to us as well, and just, allowing us to purchase the equipment and that type of stuff. But yeah, so that's the closed-handed issue for us. And, we love American made, American grown, obviously.
Here. Yeah.
And that's never going to be something that's not a part of what we do.
Right. I'm loving the story. Well, I won't say I'm loving where the idea came from, but I love what came out of a very difficult situation for you folks. And it sounds like you were able to remain grounded in your faith, and then not only that, but have a community come around you in that dark hour. That's fantastic. And now you're often rolling like gangbusters. I mean, so if you donate one for every 10 that you sell and you've donated 1,100, I don't know what the math is on that. It's got to be close to 1 million now. So congratulations on approaching 1 million of those sold. What's next? What's next for Covered in Cotton?
If you notice in our mission statement, we don't really say anything about cotton products, and that's intentional. So we love being able to share like we say, our tagline, the fiber of our fields with your family. And so that'll always be a part of what we do, but we love being able to share about agriculture because there's so many misconceptions. There's so many disconnections with agriculture. And through this platform, we get to talk to people all the time who have no idea that cotton is a plant. You know, I've talked to more than one person, unfortunately, that thinks cotton comes from sheep.
Wow.
And so it's a humbling thing for us to remember that what is so common for us is not for the majority of the population. So that looks like, you know, I would love to write a children's book about cotton. We do tours here. You know, we love welcoming people to see more about what it looks like and where these cotton products start. We've had groups from different parts of the world. And then, you know, even local groups. I go doing a lot of speaking and sharing our story and our company and more about agriculture all over the place. So really, we're open-handed with what the Lord has next for us. You know, new products. We'd love to see the textile industry is not what it once was in our country. So that is probably our biggest challenge, is finding the right partners here, because so many have gone out of business in the last several years, on top of what was already had moved out, you know, decades prior. So we're always looking for new ways to share what we do with our cotton, with our products, but then also with those other parts of our mission.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I'm really glad that you took some time to share all of this with us. What an encouraging, fascinating story, and that's one of our goals too. Is to try and bring in some of those non-farm folks who just really just don't know. They haven't been educated. We grew up in this stuff, you know. It's easy for us. For them, not so much. There's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misconception. So I appreciate you all working toward making it more clear to folks and for helping us out here on Grow Getters. I'm just so super psyched and inspired by your tale here. I don't want to keep you all day. Ty, I'm going to give you the last word here, and then we're going to cut you loose. Final words for our audience, coveredInCotton.com. Go.
Yeah. So it really is an honor, you know, and a privilege to do what we do every day. And that's something that we don't take lightly. You know, we obviously put a lot of hard work into Covered in Cotton, and but you know, it starts, you know, at the seed on the Woodard farm side of things. And you know, my dad and my brother, you know, still farm with them every day, and the guys that help us on the farm. And you know, we're all trying to do the best we can with what the Lord's given us. And you know, whether that's to work with our hands, you know, that we do, with our minds a lot of times on the farm, because you wear many hats on the farm. You know, but also just trying to reach out and help a neighbor in some form or fashion. You know, whether that's just, you know, maybe being kind to somebody, or maybe providing a blanket for a kid in a hospital who can't have any other fabric because they're in a machine, or, you know, incubator type machine or whatever, and only natural fibers will work. You know, we've gotten that letter back to us, and you know, we're just really grateful day in and day out to be able to do what we do. And we obviously love cotton. We love agriculture. And really, while I'm going, you know, a big shout out to Farm Bureau for the work that they do in advancing the cause of agriculture, and they've invested a lot in us in terms of leadership and things of that nature, to, you know, to give us this, to be able to use this position that we have to the best of our ability. So we want to honor them and honor the Lord in everything that we do. And you know, at the end of the day, that's who we are, and what we'll always strive to be.
Well, I am super pleased that we crossed paths. Thank you for blessing us with some of your time today with your story. I'm gonna have to talk to you guys again sometime and just sort of take little chunks of things that you said and flesh them out a little bit. It's a wonderful story. Super proud of you guys. Super encouraged. Tracy and Ty Woodard from Covered in Cotton, coveredin.cotton.com. Thanks for being with us on Grow Getters.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Davis. Appreciate it.
All right, well, thanks to Tracy and Ty Woodard for being here today. Production support provided by Jack Heffron and Zach Zengula. Find Grow Getters on Farm Journal's YouTube channel and listen to it wherever you find your favorite podcasts. So for Farm Journal Studios, I'm your pal, Davis Michaelson. Thanks for watching Grow Getters, and hey, let's get out there and grow get 'em, everybody.
Grow Getters is a production of Farm Journal Studios, where no one grows alone.